I don't know, I'm sure most of us here are familiar with cricket. So, like they say, you can either be a line and length bowler and just keep bowling at one spot, or you could be like a Shoaib Akhtar, try a bouncer, try a slower one, try and scare the batsman out, and maybe that is when you'll be taking more wickets. So, just with that analogy, I think somebody who's actually taken a very big leap and has come to Pakistan, and I'm sure it's going to go a long way for Pakistan and for the stock exchange itself. The last session of the day, transforming Pakistan's capital market, bringing stability, restoring confidence, and boosting potential. We're just coming to what is going to be a very important component of the day. And we know that the Pakistan Stock Exchange, which was like 19,000 points in 2013, is now at 46,000 points. And I think even today we've done quite well so far post the tax amnesty scheme. I'd be very pleased to have Mr. Richard Moran, the Managing Director of Pakistan Stock Exchange. By way of introduction, Mr. Moran is an experienced financial markets executive with over 30 years of experience spreading across various emerging markets and in Canada. Throughout his career, Mr. Moran has contributed in various segments of financial markets, including but not limited to formulation of securities markets, regulation and supervision mechanisms, derivative markets, central depositories, clearing systems, government securities markets, and investment advisory. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for, I think it's a very interesting part of the day, and we all want to know what is coming for the stock exchange. Is the retail base going to widen? Are we going to have more brokers? Is the market going to touch 55,000 anytime soon? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Moran, Managing Director of the Pakistan Stock Exchange.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I will answer your last question first. If you'd like to know if PSX is going to 55,000, ask your broker. Don't ask me. I am not in the business of predicting where the stock market is going. Even when I was a money manager, I was not in the business of predicting the direction of markets. In fact, you don't need any ability to predict the short or medium direction of the market in order to do very well investing in the stock market. I didn't intend to start my comments on that, but since you opened the door, anybody who invested $1 million rupees in PSX 10 years ago and did nothing for 10 years, today finds themselves with 8 million rupees in their account. Okay? The fundamental message is this one. Now, first of all, I wasn't aware that I was going to be the last speaker of the day. It's in an unenviable position because I am the last thing standing between you and your next commitment, whether it's going back home, going to the office. So I'll try to make this as brief and interesting as possible, and keep a few minutes if you want for you to ask questions. You're all finance professionals. I don't need to explain to you the importance of the capital market in economic development. The stock exchange is not a side business where you invest your spare change. It is a fundamental mechanism. It's at the heart of economic development. There will be no successful Pakistan economy, growing, vibrant economy, if we don't develop the capital market in Pakistan. Today, the numbers are simple. Pakistan has 250,000 investors. That is, there are 250,000 Pakistanis holding investment accounts with their brokers in Pakistan. That is a far cry from where it should be. And again, I refer to these numbers regularly. I don't mean to belittle what has been done so far in Pakistan. In fact, I look at PSX and I increasingly use the analogy of PSX as a 70-year-old startup. We've got tremendous growth opportunity. We're at the ground level in terms of market development. and we're going to make it happen. So from the objective, simply stated, is in the medium term, and by medium term I would mean between 3 and 5 years. The simple objective is to go from 250,000 investors on PSX to a more respectable number of 2.5 million investors. And in fact, in my view, Pakistan, with a population of 200 million, should have an investor base of at least 5 million investors. But keeping this objective of 2.5 million investors in mind, it means that we propose to increase the investor base in Pakistan tenfold. As we do that, we will transform Pakistan's capital market, will have a fundamental impact on the economy, and of course will have a fundamental impact on the companies where you work. And as CFOs, as you see the price-earnings ratio on Pakistan Stock Exchange migrate from 9 to 10 to 12 to hopefully 16 and 20 times earnings, you'll be advising your CEOs that perhaps it's time to consider listing on PSX and raising capital. Capital will become cheaper on PSX. Ultimately, that's the objective. For PSX to better play its role of allocating capital from Pakistani investors to Pakistan companies. And again, as we do so, we'll have an impact on your companies, and we'll also have an impact on investors. As I said earlier, anybody who invested $1 million rupees on PSX 10 years ago has 8 million rupees today. So I don't think any investors should be passing that up. So where we need to succeed is in convincing middle-class Pakistanis to invest their life savings on Pakistan Stock Exchange in order to achieve their financial objectives. That objective may be financing a down payment on their next house. It may be paying for their kids' education. Most likely, long-term, their objective may be to finance their retirement. Either way, middle-class Pakistanis must come to invest in Pakistan-listed companies in order to meet these long-term objectives that they have. Now, if I was middle-class Pakistanis, in fact, if I was an investor anywhere, the first question, my first criteria before I invest would be, is my capital safe? Okay? So as we embark on a transformation project at PSX, on a reform program at PSX, in 2018, we will be addressing 3 fundamental areas. We have 3 objectives, 3 tasks that we want to perform in 2018 in order to achieve our long-term objective of increasing the number of Pakistanis investing on the stock market. Number 1, investor protection. We will get nowhere, and nothing we will do in terms of marketing, nothing we will do in terms of investor education will make any difference until we can guarantee to Pakistani investors that their money is safe when they invest with a Pakistan stockbroker, with a PSX stockbroker. And I'll be candid in my comments. Today, we're not there. Pakistan has an unacceptable, unenviable track record of investor protection. Too many investors, despite the very good long-term return that PSX investors have realized, unfortunately, too many of them have lost money to broker default and, to be blunt, to broker fraud. We're very aggressively addressing this issue in 2018. So number 1 priority at PSX is investor protection. How are we going to do that? Very simply, 2 things. A, we drastically reduce the number of incidents of brokers going insolvent. Second thing we do, because we'll never eliminate completely broker defaults. Even in developed markets, occasionally a broker goes bankrupt. So when it does happen, the Pakistan Investor Protection Fund will offer far better protection than what it's been offering so far. So very quickly, how do we do these two things? To reduce the incidence of broker default, we reorganize the regulatory framework in Pakistan and put in place a single entity in Pakistan that will be in charge of regulating brokers. One single, competent, powerful, independent entity in Pakistan in charge of regulating brokers. In fact, if I arrived late here today, it's because I was in a meeting with SECP working on the implementation plan for this new regulator in Pakistan. So we'll drastically reduce the incidence of broker defaults. The other side of the equation is, again, to better protect clients who are caught in a broker default. That's the Investor Protection Fund's mission. There, we'll reform the IPF, the Investor Protection Fund will be reformed to eliminate the current limit. We currently are limited to 25 million rupees per broker default in terms of how much we can reimburse investors who have lost money to a broker default. That maximum per broker will be eliminated and replaced by a guarantee. Every single investor on PSX will be guaranteed that up to probably somewhere between 1 and 2 million rupees, they will be completely reimbursed if they lose money to broker default or broker fraud. Okay? So we have the resources to do it. We know the recipe. We are going to bring to Pakistan best international practices in terms of investor protection so that we are in a position at PSX to finally tell middle-class Pakistanis that their money, their capital is as safe with a PSX stockbroker as it is with a savings bond, a Pakistan savings bond. The level of protection will be the same on either side. So number one priority is better investor protection. Number two priority, because again we want to convince the 20 to 40 million strong middle-class Pakistan to look at PSX, we need to have simple, accessible investment vehicles for them. I think mutual funds, for somebody investing in the stock market for the first time, mutual funds are a very appropriate vehicle. There is an equally attractive vehicle that doesn't exist in Pakistan and that we are working very hard to implement here, and that should be here within in 2018. It's called an exchange traded funds. So Pakistanis in the coming months will have access to exchange traded funds. It's a security that you buy and sell on the stock market as easily as you buy the stock of an individual company, except that it gives you exposure to the entire market. So in one transaction, you'll be able to buy a security that gives you exposure to all 30 stocks that constitute the KSE 30 index. So that's coming to Pakistan in the next few months. And that, I believe, is the ideal product to bring middle-class Pakistanis to invest on the stock market. I often use the analogy, the exchange-traded fund will be to Pakistan's capital market what the cell phone was to the African telephone market 20 or 30 years ago. 30 years ago, Africans didn't have access to phone lines because the phone network simply didn't exist in Africa. Okay? But when the cell phone came, Africans leapfrogged the old technology of the landline and everybody acquired a cell phone. So the penetration rate of cell phones in Africa went through the roof. I think exchange-traded funds have the same potential in Pakistan. Most Pakistanis don't buy individual securities listed on the Pakistan stock market. They don't understand that. It's too complicated. You need to know how to analyze a company. Are they making profit or not? Are the prospects good or not? That's too complicated for the men and women who don't understand the stock market. ETFs, exchange-traded funds, will allow them to leapfrog single stock picking and buy one security on the exchange that will give them exposure to the entire market. They don't need to understand anything. They only need to listen to Richard Morin telling them that you buy the security, you keep it for 10 years, and in 10 years, its value will be multiplied by 4, 5, or 10-fold. Yeah? So second thing, so first one was investor protection. Second is a simple, accessible investment vehicle for middle-class Pakistanis. Third, I know you're CFOs and you're not marketing executive, but the third part of the equation is distribution. We need to reach out to middle-class Pakistanis and make it easy for them to open an account with a stockbroker. This is the distribution network. Before the end of this year, we want anybody in Pakistan to be able to take their iPhone or Google phone and within 5 to 10 minutes go through the entire account opening process. We want a streamlined account opening and give everybody access to account opening using their cell phone. That requires that we coordinate between PSX, MCCP, CDC, SCCP, the tax authorities. We'll do all that. A lot of processes will be automated and integrated and coordinated in the background. But to you, investors, it will be as simple as taking this, going through the account opening process, signing in online, using biometrics to identify yourself. It'll be connected to your unique identification number, and you'll be on your way to investing. Okay? So theoretically, you can go from nothing, not knowing much about the stock market, to, again, having that guarantee that your money is safe because the investor protection fund is there to ensure that. Second, you'll be able to open an account in a few minutes. And third, you'll have access to a simple product that gives you access to not only all the stocks listed on the stock market. When I talk about exchange-traded funds, we'll have equity exchange-traded funds that allow you to buy the KSC 30 in one transaction. But we'll also have bond exchange-traded funds. So you'll be able to come to the stock market, buy an exchange-traded fund that gives you exposure to a portfolio of bonds also, government bonds and corporate bonds available to trade for investors. Okay, so 3 simple things we'll do in 2018 to attract those 2.5 million investors that we want to bring to PSX. Of course, behind that, there's a number of enablers that won't happen by itself. Among the enablers, obviously, is technology. PSX will be investing heavily in technology, a new trading platform, a new clearing platform, a new market surveillance platform to keep an eye on the people who do business for you and making sure they stay honest. So we'll invest heavily in market surveillance technology, and we'll also invest heavily in market data to make market data more available to all to Pakistanis and to international investors. PSX itself needs to go through a profound reorganization. As we went through the demutualization, the sale of a strategic stake in PSX to Chinese investors, and as we went through the IPO, PSX at the governance level has been reorganized, has been transformed. Now we need to go down to the organizational level. So we're recruiting a chief operating officer. We are recruiting a head of marketing and business development. We will be recruiting a head of product management and research at PSX, all in an effort to transform Pakistan's capital market to better serve and better meet our mandate of developing the capital market. Once all of that is done, of course, we do all this in close collaboration with our friends at SCCP. No national capital market can work effectively and develop harmoniously without close collaboration between the regulator and the stock exchange. And this is what we have. We've always had a good relationship between Pakistan Stock Exchange and the SCCP. I think that relationship has continued to improve as we have built a common vision as to where we want it. And again, I'll be candid in my comment. There hasn't always been a common vision between Pakistan Stock Exchange and SCCP. I'm very happy to report that that common vision is now in place, and we're working together as a team to make it happen, including, as I mentioned earlier, better investor protection. And finally, once we have all the pieces of the puzzle in place, the technology, the investor protection, the retail product, once we have better access through our cell phone, once all of that is in place, we go out and we market. We invest heavily in investor awareness. We need Pakistanis to understand the vital importance for them, not just for the Pakistan economy, but for them personally. Why is it important that middle-class Pakistanis invest, save for the future, and invest on Pakistan Stock Exchange? There is no better place. There is no asset class available to them that will provide them better long-term return than PSX. So we will be investing very heavily in investor education, in investor awareness, in marketing. We'll be working with our stakeholders, the brokers. We'll be working with ICAP on those various initiatives to develop capital market and bring middle-class Pakistanis to invest on our stock market. I had given myself 20 minutes to address you. I got 26 seconds left. I think we have a few more minutes. I don't know if there are questions in the audience, things you'd like to know more about, questions you have for me, or maybe you have a question.
Any questions specifically from Mr. Richard Moran? I think it's a very good opportunity to have the managing director. And there's one, yes. Let me just give you the mic.
And don't hesitate to be candid in your questions.
Yeah, Mr. Richard, I'm Hanif Idris. The 3 points which you mentioned, 3 priorities, are really encouraging. My query is that with the trend of companies not getting listed, how would these 3 priorities bring success to PSX? Because the number of listed companies has remained more or less quite stagnant over the years. So promoting the culture of listing, wouldn't that be in your priorities?
Yes. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to maybe dig down a little deeper into what we're doing. First, as we succeed in bringing more investors to buy shares listed on Pakistan Stock Exchange, the companies you work with, simple supply and demand. As the demand from investor increases, it will push up the price of companies, the stock of the companies listed on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And as the price goes up, you're all CFOs. You occasionally make that decision. Do we finance through bank financing? Do we issue debt? Or do we go to the stock market to get, and one of the factors in your decision is, what price am I getting on the stock market? Today, the average price-earnings ratio for a company listed on the Pakistan Stock Exchange is around 9. Well, it's probably migrated towards closer to 10 because we're now at 46,000. And don't ask me where it's going next year. I don't know. But we will continue. So as the price-earnings ratio goes from 9 to 10 to, for example, across the border in India, the average price-earnings ratio is 12. The average price-earnings ratio in emerging markets is 16. So as the price goes up, it becomes increasingly attractive for companies to consider listing on the stock market as a way to finance their development. So the demand partly will come from that. The second thing, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to hire a head of business development, marketing and business development. One of his direct reports will be the head of corporate services. So we'll have a dedicated team at PSX whose job it will be to, on the one hand, provide value-added services to companies listed. So we'll make it more attractive to companies to come because they'll get more services from PSX. But they'll also be very active, talking to you, CFOs, talking to your CEOs, and educating you and increasing your awareness of the advantages of listing on PSX. So it will be both you, the demand coming because you'll see it as more attractive, and we at PSX will be very actively talking to all of you across Pakistan in an effort to convince you of the advantages of coming to PSX to list. Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Richard, this is Farooq Sheikh. I'm running a consulting firm called Babel Fish Consultant, and I work with different organizations. In the initial part of your presentation, you mentioned that you would like to encourage the people from the middle class to invest in the stock exchange. But unfortunately, the current practices are like the insider trading. The confidence in the stock exchange by the middle class investors is very low. So I would like you to enlighten us that what should be done. And I'm glad to know that you are hiring a marketing person to actually effectively market the stock exchange, because I'm from the same fraternity. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's a very important, sensitive, and relevant question. I think we need to separate two things. We need to separate perception from reality, and we need to separate the past from the present and the future. So, in the past, I wasn't here, but from what I hear, it seems reasonable that yes, there had been instances of market manipulation. That might have been the case in the past. But things have already changed a great deal at PSX. The number of brokers in Pakistan has gone from 400 after the merger of the three exchanges to 230 today. And it's not an objective of PSX or CCP to see that number to continue to go down, but the number is likely to continue to go down because it's becoming increasingly onerous for a stockbroker to remain in business in Pakistan. Capital requirements are higher. Proficiency requirements are higher. The regulator is more active, and the regulator is reorganizing itself. As I said earlier, a very, very strategic initiative, joint initiative of PSX, SCCP, as well as other stakeholders, NCCP, CDC, and PMEX. We are creating this strong, competent, independent policeman of brokers, something that has never existed in Pakistan, I'll be honest. We, PSX, have a regulatory division. As a stock exchange, we have historically run our own regulatory division. Okay? There's an inherent conflict of interest in doing that because brokers are our owners, they are our clients. So human nature being what it is, it's always difficult for a stock exchange to regulate brokers. That's a conclusion that all countries, all over the world, have come to, and they have all implemented the same solution. Again, the solution is to take the regulatory part out of the stock exchange and put it into a separate entity, completely independent from the exchange. Okay? So the past was one where Pakistan was ill-equipped to deal with these instances of market manipulation, insider trading. The future is very, very, very different. Okay? Second thing we also need, and that will become increasingly relevant, we need to separate perception from reality. I think that perception may stay for a long time. It may no longer fit the reality. I think we're we are implementing the measures to have a more fairness and more integrity in the market. I think it will take a while for the perception to change, but we will get there. And again, one thing. For the middle-class Pakistani, buying my ETF, and in one transaction, buying the 30 stocks that constitute the KSE 30, I would submit to you that whether or not there is insider trading is irrelevant. It's relevant to the person trading in and out of the market daily. But for the average investor who puts $1 million in KSE 30 today and adds, I don't know, 100,000 a month to that, I don't know what the number would be, 50,000 a month that he would save, or 20,000 a month, or 10,000 a month that he would. You know, these issues of market, if there are instances of market manipulation, it's irrelevant. Today, KSC is at 46,000. In 10 years, it will probably be at 150,000. In the meantime, he will have received a dividend of 4 or 5% a year. I think that's the message. But we will address issues of insider trading and manipulation. Yeah? In fact, no, we will not address. We are addressing them.
Hi, Richard. My name is Sabah Sodar. I'm a member of ICAP. You just mentioned that soon the electronic traded funds will be launched in Pakistan Stock Exchange.
Exchange traded funds.
Yeah, the exchange traded funds.
Yeah.
So can you please enlighten us on the potential implications on the mutual funds industry in Pakistan?
The implications for the finance industry?
No, the mutual funds industry. The mutual funds
Mutual
industry.
funds industry. Well, another very relevant question. That's the world over. The exchange traded fund, which in fact, I'm a Canadian, I must say this. The first exchange traded fund listed anywhere in the world was in Canada at the Toronto Stock Exchange. But the Canadians did not invent the exchange traded fund. And this is an interesting story. The concept of the exchange traded fund was first thought of by a regulator. The SEC in the US saw the exchange traded fund as a solution to the 1987 crash, which was caused by electronic trading. But anyway, so it has grown very slowly, but now the exchange traded funds is by very far, the fastest growing financial product in the world. For a simple reason, it is the best technology. It is a far better technology than stock picking. You know, I use the term technology loosely when I talk about ETFs, but it's just a better way to invest. And so it has started to transform the finance industry all over the world. And it will do the same thing in Pakistan. Except that in Pakistan, it's a bit like my analogy with the African phone market. The mutual fund industry is still underdeveloped in Pakistan, like the capital market more generally. So I think there will be less resistance from market players in Pakistan to get into exchange-traded funds. You know, because if you look at what's happening elsewhere, the mutual fund industry is reluctantly getting involved in ETFs because their profit margin on an ETF is a tiny fraction of their profit margin on a mutual fund. Okay? In Pakistan, because mutual funds are underdeveloped, we see less resistance to the development of ETFs. In fact, the major mutual fund players in Pakistan are our partners in developing the exchange-traded fund because they, like me, they understand that this is the product that will considerably increase our penetration, to talk in marketing terms, increase our penetration of the Pakistan middle-class market. So I think it will help the development of Pakistan finance industry more than transform it because it's too small yet to be transformed. I think it will be the instrument of the development of the finance industry. I'd be remiss if I didn't say one thing fundamental about the finance industry. I tell everybody I meet, I told SECP, I told my board, I tell the brokers, it is financially impossible for the Pakistan brokerage industry to run a profitable business model by charging trading commission. Trading commissions are under considerable pressure in Pakistan and everywhere around the world for a simple reason. The cost of executing a transaction on the exchange is going down due to technology, due to regulatory changes. You're all finance professionals. You know that microeconomics tells us that the market price of a good, long term, will converge to its cost of production. So if the cost of executing a transaction on the exchange goes to zero, the commission, stock trading commission, will tend to zero. And if you don't believe me, look at developed markets in Canada, in the US, in a number of different markets in Europe and elsewhere. Stock trading commissions are zero. So my message to the finance industry is that if you're looking to build yourself a career in finance, don't think brokerage, think advice. What we need in order to bring middle-class Pakistanis, convince them to invest on the stock market is not stock brokerage. It's investment advice. You know, he's I don't know, a DGM working in a company, knows nothing about finance. He needs financial advice. 40 million Pakistanis are in great need of financial advice, and my guess is that they will be willing to pay for it. The industry, and I think the industry has already started to transform and move into that direction. The industry needs to think in terms of providing financial advice and charging for it, as opposed to executing trades on the stock market. It's certainly not a business model that 230 brokers in Pakistan can make money with. That said, if we want for that to happen in Pakistan, we need to break the silos. I think the regulator, and I'm lobbying the regulator to break the silos between stockbrokers, investment advisors, and asset management companies. Those silos need to be broken. And you should be allowed to have the three activities under one roof. Whoops. Yeah. It's a long-winded answer to your question. I think we have a question at the back. And while we wait, investment advice, just to clarify my thought on that, investment advice is a kind to financial planning. When I say investment, that 40 million Pakistanis need investment advice, understand that what I mean to say is that they need financial planning. How do I finance the purchase of my house? How do I finance my kids' education? How do I finance my retirement? That's their question. That's the relevant question for them. Asset management and brokerage is ancillary to that. The fundamental question for them is, I have objectives. How do I meet them? And please, financial advisors, accompany me in reaching those objectives. Asset management and brokerage, again, in my mind, is ancillary to that. Yes.
Yeah, hi Richards. My name is Shakil. I am a cost and management accountant. My question is that according to statistics I read somewhere in October 2017, the number of total investors in the stock exchange, Pakistan Stock Exchange, was around 500K out of 200 million population. What steps PSX is taking to encourage the small investors' inclusion in the PSX, and what measures can be taken for the protection of small investors? Thank you.
Did you miss the first 20 minutes of my presentation? Sorry, no disrespect intended. Again, the three things. Before anybody invests, their first question is my capital safe? Am I entrusting my capital to somebody who's trustworthy? So, number one priority, investor protection. Number two, simple, accessible, easy to understand investment vehicle. That's the exchange traded fund. And third, You'll open your account and manage your account using this. Everybody, I mean, at least the 40 million Pakistanis we believe form our target market, they have access to this. So that's how you do it. As I came here, everybody was talking about stock options and futures, and we need more leverage products and all that. Let me be clear. The 250,000 investors we have at PSX tend to be more active investors. They're people who speculate in the market. We like them. And if we can get another 250,000 of them, I'll be happy. But even if we do get 250,000 more speculators on our market, it won't transform our capital market. What will transform our capital market is 2.5 million middle-class Pakistanis investing their 20 trillion rupees on PSX. Because by the numbers I have indicate to me that there's 20 trillion rupees in wealth accumulated that's not invested on PSX. If we get 1/3 of that to come to PSX, we double the market cap of our listed companies. We instantly bring the price-earnings ratio from 10 to 16. And then your answer your question is answered. I don't know if I'm being clear. Investor protection, investment products, and easier access to the market. Streamlined access to the market. I would encourage you to, for those of you who want to know what the future looks like, Google robo-advisor. Google that. As you leave this conference, go to Google and Google robo-advisor if you want to know what the future of financial services looks like. That's it. We're 10 minutes over budget. Thank you very much.
Richard, thank you so much for, I think, very clear thoughts in terms of what needs to happen at the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And I think there's a huge amount of liquidity that's still out there. So there's 15 trillion of domestic debt that is out there. And, you know, all of us over here would be aware that historically the saving schemes for Pakistanis have been what I call special saving certificates and defense saving certificates, which are bought out of the national saving schemes, which is where the average Pakistani puts its money in. And with 100 million SIM cards, like I mentioned earlier, there are just 20 million bank accounts and 250,000 investors in the stock market. So if something like an exchange traded fund were to come in where you could actually essentially get the return on the index, it would probably be a fantastic product. So good luck with all of that, and we hope that there'll be some technical releases coming the ICAP's way in terms of how these products need to be valued and reported. And we're more than glad to participate and contribute to that. But thank you so much for your thoughts. I think if you can make this happen, Pakistan will remember you for a very long time. Thank you. Can I please request Ms. Hina Osmani to come on stage in order to present a memento to Mr. Richard Morris. Thank you.